So most of you will be familiar with the multiple choice question and the listening. We're going to just review this and we're going to do 2 practices. So let's get started. So what do you have to do with the multiple choice listening? You're going to be given questions with a list of answers, usually 3 choices, and you have to choose the correct one. And this is what your multiple choice looks like. So here's your questions, and here are your multiple answers, of which you have to choose either A, B, or C. And in your answer, or on your answer sheet, you just need to write the letter of the answer. So the method for this, the first thing you want to do is focus on the question and then identify the key words in the question. So these are important words that when you hear them in the audio, you will know that your answer is coming. Now always be careful with keywords that you also listen out for synonyms or words with the same meanings. Then you're going to look at your answer options. Now, with the answer options, sometimes in the audio recording, they'll actually mention all 3 answer options, just to confuse you a little bit, but only one of them will be correct. So let's put that method into practice with question number 1. Focus on the question. So this one, how long does Lucy need a lease for? Then we want to identify the keywords. So long and lease. So how long, we know it's going to be time, and lease, we're listening out for this word. And we should think about a synonym for lease. So lease can also mean rent, because they may not use the exact word. Then we want to look at our answer options. We have 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months. Now let's repeat those steps for the remaining questions. So question 2, how much rent can Lucy afford to pay? And the key words here are rent, afford, and pay. And the answer options are under 300, over 300, or around 400. Question 3, what amenity does Lucy particularly need? And here we're looking at amenity and need. Access to public transport, access to local shops, or laundry facilities. Question 4, Lucy must pay a deposit of, and the key word here is deposit. Is it 100% deposit, 50% deposit, or 0%? And finally, question 5, which payment method did Lucy choose? So the key word here is payment method, and the answers are bank transfer, credit card, or check. So now that we've had a look at all of the questions, identified the keywords, and looked at our answer options, we're ready to listen and choose our answers. So I'm going to play the audio for you now, and you can type in your answers as you hear them. This again.
Hello, welcome to Rest Real Estate. How may I help you?
Oh, hello.
Okay, you can all hear that? Okay, great. Okay, good. Let's get started.
Hello, welcome to Rest Real Estate. How may I help you?
Oh, hello. My name's Lucy. I'm calling to inquire about some flats you have for rent.
Yes, which ones are you interested in?
I saw a few on your website. I'm interested in the one in Camberfield and the one in West Raven. But I could see the leases are for 6 months and 18 months. As I'll be here for a year, I'll need a year-long lease. Would that be possible?
Not for either of those properties, I'm afraid, but I do have one close to West Craven that could interest you. It's $400 a week.
Oh, that's a bit over my budget. I'm actually looking to pay about half that.
Well, I have one in Blanktown that is in your price range.
Okay, can you tell me about it?
Sure, it's close to public transport, is walking distance from local shops, and also has a laundromat on site.
Oh, great. I have a car, but I particularly want to be close to the shops. How many bedrooms is it?
It's a studio apartment. For that price, it would be hard to find something bigger.
That's fine. I only need a small place. Can I go and see it?
Sure, I can show you it tomorrow afternoon. Now, just letting you know that it needs a full deposit of a total month's rent.
Okay, yeah, I can manage that.
Great. We do have a few payment methods. If you're happy with the place tomorrow, you can make the deposit by credit card, check, or bank transfer.
I think bank transfer would be easiest. Actually, no, credit card would be better for me.
Okay, great. Well, I'll see you at the site at 4 p.m. tomorrow. I'll email you the address.
Thanks, see you then.
Okay, let's have a look. So all your answers have come through. Let's check them. So we've got B, A, B, A, and B. All right, let's check the feedback. Question number 1, I think you all got that one right. How long does Lucy need the lease for? And she said, I'll be here for a year, so I'll need a year-long lease. So a year-long lease is the same as 12 months. So the answer is B. Number 2, Lucy can afford to pay under 300. Okay, the agent told her that the rent is 400 a week. She said, that's a bit over my budget. I'm actually looking to pay about half of that. So half of 400 is under 300. So there's our answer. Number 3 is B, access to local shops. So although Mark mentioned all of the answers, Lucy was particularly interested in being close to the shops. Lucy must pay a deposit of 100%. Mark tells her it needs a full deposit of a total month's rent. So that's 100% deposit. Now this last one, which bank payment method did Lucy choose? She actually chose credit card. She said, I think bank transfer would be easiest. Actually, no, credit card would be better for me. So that was a trick. And IELTS love to play tricks, so be careful of those. So let's talk about a few tips. You might hear all of the answer options mentioned. So listen carefully for which one is the correct answer. For example, Lucy says, I could see the leases are for 6 months and 18 months. As I'll be here for a year, I'll need a year-long lease. So when she says 6 months and 18 months, then you know that, okay, your answer is coming. It's going to be one of those 3 options. And then she says a year. You may hear synonyms rather than the same words in the question. So for example, the question said lease, how long a lease does Lucy need? And then she says rent. Okay, so you won't always hear the same word, you might hear similar words. Number 3, this is relating to the last question. Always anticipate distractors. Distractors are when the speaker gives you what you think is the answer, but then changes their mind. Okay, so it distracts you from the real answer. And here was an example. I think bank account would be easiest. So many of us would think, bank account is my answer. But then she actually says, no, credit card would be better for me. And she changed her mind. So whenever you think you have the answer, just keep listening to be sure that it's not a distractor. Okay, let's try the next one. Here are your questions. I'm going to give you a few moments to read the questions, think of the keywords, and check your having a look at the answers. Okay, 1 minute for that. Okay, I'll start the audio.
According to a major global study, vitamin D was found to protect against acute respiratory infections, including colds and flu. The study provides the most robust evidence yet that vitamin D has benefits beyond bone and muscle health and could have major implications for public health policy. The results? Published analyzed data from around 11,000 participants in 25 clinical trials conducted in 14 countries. Individually, these trials yielded conflicting results, with some reporting that vitamin D protected against respiratory infections and others showing no effect. This major collaborative research effort has yielded the first definitive evidence that vitamin D really does protect against respiratory infections. Analysis of the data addresses the question of why vitamin D worked in some trials but not in others. It was found that the protective effects of vitamin D supplementation are strongest in those who have the lowest vitamin D levels, and when supplementation is given daily or weekly rather than in more widely spaced doses. Vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin, is thought to protect against respiratory infections by boosting levels of natural antibiotic-like substances in the lungs. Results of the study fit with the observation that colds and flu are commonest in winter and spring, when levels of vitamin D are at their lowest. They may also explain why vitamin D protects against asthma attacks, which are commonly triggered by respiratory viruses. Daily or weekly supplementation halved the risk of acute respiratory infection in people with the lowest vitamin D levels. However, people with higher vitamin D levels also benefited, although the effect was more modest. Overall, the reduction in risk of acute respiratory infection induced by vitamin D was on a par with the protective effect of injectable flu vaccine. Acute respiratory infections, such as cold and flu, are the commonest reason for GP consultations and days off work. Vitamin D supplementation is safe and inexpensive, so reductions in acute respiratory infections brought about by vitamin D supplementation could be highly cost-effective.
Okay, so I'm just checking your answers, guys, and there's a bit of a discrepancy or inconsistency between your answers. So how about we listen one more time, go back and check your answers, okay? We'll have another go.
According to a major global study, vitamin D was found to protect against acute respiratory infections, including colds and flu. The study provides the most robust evidence yet that vitamin D has benefits beyond bone and muscle health and could have major implications for public health policy. The results? Published analyzed data from around 11,000 participants in 25 clinical trials conducted in 14 countries. Individually, these trials yielded conflicting results, with some reporting that vitamin D protected against respiratory infections and others showing no effect. This major collaborative research effort has yielded the first definitive evidence that vitamin D really does protect against respiratory infections. Analysis of the data addresses the question of why vitamin D worked in some trials but not in others. It was found that the protective effects of vitamin D supplementation are strongest in those who have the lowest vitamin D levels, and when supplementation is given daily or weekly rather than in more widely spaced doses. Vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin, is thought to protect against respiratory infections by boosting levels of natural antibiotic-like substances in the lungs. Results of the study fit with the observation that colds and flu are commonest in winter and spring, when levels of vitamin D are at their lowest. They may also explain why vitamin D protects against asthma attacks, which are commonly triggered by respiratory viruses. Daily or weekly supplementation halved the risk of acute respiratory infection in people with the lowest vitamin D levels. However, people with higher vitamin D levels also benefited, although the effect was more modest. Overall, the reduction in risk of acute respiratory infection induced by vitamin D was on a par with the protective effect of injectable flu vaccine. Acute respiratory infections, such as cold and flu, are the commonest reason for GP consultations and days off work. Vitamin D supplementation is safe and inexpensive, so reductions in acute respiratory infections brought about by vitamin D supplementation could be highly cost-effective.
Okay, Good. I see some more consistency with your answers this time. Good. So let's check. We have C, B, A, C, and B. Let's check them. The first thing the speaker says is a major global study has found that vitamin D protects against cold and flu. Vitamin D supplements protect against acute respiratory infections. So respiratory infections was our answer. Okay, they don't mention anything about autoimmune disease, and they don't mention anything about bacterial infection. Question number 2. The speaker actually mentioned all of those numbers. The results published analyzed data from around 11,000 participants in 25 clinical trials conducted in 14 countries. So B is our answer. Vitamin D, the sunshine vitamin, is thought to protect against respiratory infections. So vitamin D is known as the sunshine vitamin. Number 4. Results of the study fit with the observation that colds and flu are commonest in winter and spring when the levels of vitamin D are at their lowest. That corresponds with our question. Vitamin D levels are at their lowest in winter and spring. And then finally, what is the most common reason for doctor visits? The speaker says acute respiratory infections such as cold and flu are the commonest reason for GP consultations. So GP means general practitioner, basically doctor, and consultations means visits. So you can see here that they used synonyms. And the most common reason for that is cold and flu. Okay, do you have any questions about this particular listening or any questions about the multiple choice? You'll notice that in the audio that you heard, the speaker said vitamin D, and I say vitamin D. So vitamin and vitamin is just a matter of accent. So this speaker has a British accent and vitamin is very British, and Australians and Americans tend to say vitamin. So useful to know. Any questions? So you'll see, guys, that sometimes you won't always know the meaning to some of these words. So probably you don't know the meaning or haven't come across autoimmune disease, respiratory infections, or this word respiratory. You don't have to know the meanings of the words. You just have to be able to understand that when you hear, the answer, to recognize the answer. Okay, so the speaker linked vitamin D with respiratory infections and didn't mention anything about these two. So even if you don't know what respiratory infections are, you were still able to identify that as the answer. Okay, yes, Muhammad, all the answers will be in line. All the answers will appear as you read them in order. So as the speaker speaks, he will follow the order of the questions. Now, this for listening is the same for academic and for general. Here there is no difference. The first listening that we looked at with Lucy and the renting, that probably would have come from part 2 of the listening test. This one that we just looked at would come from part 4 of the listening test. So what happens is the first audio is quite easy, the second one is quite easy, the third one gets more difficult, and the fourth one is the most difficult. So here I showed you 2 examples, one easy one and one more difficult one. Okay, so to score a band 8, how many do you need? All right, you're welcome. Now, if you miss an answer, okay, or you lose your place, just don't freak out. Just keep listening and move on. Because, as I said before, that the speaker mentions the answers in the same order that you see them. So if you get stuck on a question and try to figure it out because you've missed it, then you're going to miss the following question and the following question. So you need to just let it go and move on. And then when the listening is finished, you might be able to go back and see if you can guess the answer based on the information that you heard. Yeah, so what happens in the IELTS listening test is they have speakers in the ceiling. Well, that's in the Australian test centres anyway. They have speakers in the ceiling, and usually it's quite loud, quite clear. You won't have any issues hearing the audio. It's all done, very professionally. So yeah, there won't be any sound issues like mine. Sorry about that. Okay, guys, well done. I will see you next time. Bye.